Hi everyone, we're coming down to the end of the Chapter 6 review for the exam for Algebra 1B. We have 3 more questions to get through that are all these sort of property questions. The good news is most of them can be answered just from looking at the equation. So in the previous video we did 2 problems that were really similar to this one. We put out the vertex form right underneath the original equation so we can compare. Now for the shape of the graph, all of these graphs look the same. I just want to know what is the name of the graph, and actually if you're looking carefully, it's given to you right up here. The shape of the graph is a parabola. Now to find the vertex, that's where we're going to use this vertex form. Remember, your vertex is H and K, and so if you're comparing it to what vertex form looks like, here's your H and here's your K. Now remember, the formula has minus signs in it, okay? So if I have a plus here, this number must have been negative when it was plugged in order to make that be a plus. So my H value here is actually a -1. And my K value, this minus sign belongs to the equation, so K is just equal to 2. So the vertex of this parabola is -1, 2. Now, for axis of symmetry, that's always just a vertical line, so the equation is x equals a number, and the number is always the h value from the vertex. It's always the first number from the vertex. So this would be x equals -1 as my axis of symmetry. Now, just like we did before, these 3 questions can all be answered using the a value. And the a value is this -2/3. So I'm just going to write over here, a is equal to -2/3. Okay. Does it open up or down? Remember, that's controlled by the sign. So positive opens up, negative opens down. So this one would open down. And you may just want to write yourself a little note that that's down because a is negative. And if it opens down, it looks like this. And so the vertex would be like a top point. That'd be a highest point. Okay? Every one of these is only going to have either a maximum or a minimum. You can't have both. So this is a high point. It doesn't have a lowest point because the arrows means it keeps going. So this would be a maximum. And then for wide and skinny, we look at the a value, but we ignore the negative sign. So we're really just looking at 2/3. And 2/3 is smaller than 1. So that means that we're growing slower than an average parabola would. And if we're growing slower, we're going to tend to kind of move out to the side a little wider than we normally would. So this is going to be wide. Anything smaller than 1, but not negatives, like decimals, fractions, things like that, that's going to be wider than average. Okay, so 24 is really asking me the same kinds of questions, except this time the equation is not given to you in vertex form. So that is going to change a couple of things along the way here. However, what it will not change is the shape of the graph. Whether I graph this one up at the top or whether I graph this one, the shape of my graph is going to be a parabola. Anytime I have an x squared, it's going to be a parabola. Now, because it's not in vertex form, I can't just look at it to pluck out the vertex. I am going to have to do a little bit of work. But that's where we can find h and then use h to find k. So you may remember, to find h, the little formula is -b/2a. So in this problem, my b value would be this -3, but if I want to make that negative, and it's already negative, that's going to be +3 over 2 times my a value, which is 1/2. Now, again, if you're doing that in a calculator, make sure you put that bottom piece in parentheses. And gosh, with that, it might even be a little easier to make the 1/2 into a 0.5. That's totally allowed. So I would go 3 divided by parentheses 2 times 0.5. and I get 3. Hopefully your brain is smart enough to do that without a calculator. 2 times 1/2 is just 1, so 3 over 1 is 3. So my h value is 3. Then to find my k value, I'm going to take this 3 and plug it back into the equation up here. So I'm going to do 1/2 times 3 squared minus 3 times 3, plus 5. Let's see, that's going to be negative 4.5. I believe that's going to give me negative 0.5. Maybe positive 0.5. Yeah, positive 0.5, sorry. Oh, it's late. Mental math is slipping away. So my vertex is h comma k. So as my answer to this question, I would say my vertex is 3 comma 0.5. Now, once I have my vertex, axis of symmetry still works the same way. Axis of symmetry is just asking for x equals the first number from the vertex. So even though I had to find the vertex differently, this question should still work the same. So this would just be x equals 3. Now again, just like before, all of these come from our a value. Our equation looks a little different, but the a value is still what's in front of the x squared. So here my a is equal to 1/2. That's a positive 1/2, so that means this would open up. And if it opens up, it's going to look like this. And that means it has a minimum. Now, as far as wide, skinny, or average, comparing it to 1, 1/2 is smaller than 1, so that means this is going to be wide, okay, because it's growing half as fast. Now, there's one new question here. Number of roots. Okay, remember, I think it was maybe a couple pages ago, we had some questions about how many of something are there. That's the same question as this, right? The number of roots. So, to do this, we're going to use the discriminant. And that's b squared minus 4ac. So for us, we would do negative 3 squared. Please, please make sure you put that in parentheses because it's a negative number. Minus 4 times 1/2 times 5. Let's see, that's going to be, I think it's going to come out negative. I know that. I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but I'm just going to double check. Negative 3 squared, oops, minus 4 times 0.5 times 5. Yep, negative 1. That's what I came out to. Okay, a negative discriminant means I have no real roots. Because remember, I'm not going to be able to take a square root of that. So if I looked at a graph of this parabola, I would find that this one is not touching the x-axis at all because that discriminant is negative. Okay? Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't realize you couldn't see that. There you go. Okay, and I think we have just one more question on the back of this page, so I'll just throw that in here now too. Really similar. Shape of graph. This should not come as a surprise by this point. Shape of graph is a parabola. Again, to find the vertex, we're going to have to use h and k. So to find h, I'm doing negative b over 2a. So that would be negative 2 over, be careful here, your a value is what's in front of x squared, so that'd really be a 1. So negative 2 over 2 times 1 is going to give me negative 1 for my h. And then to find k, I'm going to take that negative 1 and plug it in. So I'm doing negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 minus 15. Let's see, that's 1 minus 2 is negative 1 minus 15 is negative 16. And so my vertex would be at negative 1 comma negative 16. H, comma, K for vertex. Axis of symmetry, always just x equals the first number from your coordinate here. So that would be x equals -1. For these three, I'm looking at my A value. My A value here is a 1. Okay, again, when there's no number written, that's a 1. It's positive, that's a +1, so it's going to open up. And again, when it opens up, it has a minimum because it's a low point. Now this is an interesting question. Usually we answer these with wide or skinny. Okay, but if my A value is a 1, that's not bigger than 1 or smaller than 1. That's exactly equal to 1. That's just going to be average. Okay, that's what we consider to be just a plain old y equals x squared type parabola. It's going to be moved around. These numbers are going to move it to a different position on the coordinate plane. You can see the vertex is here. But size-wise, it would look exactly the same as just y equals x squared. And then number of roots. Again, that uses the discriminant. So I'm going to go 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times -15. Let's see. I think that's going to come out to be 64. Okay, that's positive, which means I have 2 real roots. So positive means I have 2, negative means I have none, and the only way you can come out to exactly one solution is if you're working with a 0 for your discriminant. Okay, that's it for Chapter 6. I'm sure you're loving quadratics and parabolas as much as I am right now. But you should be in pretty good shape on this chapter because this is the chapter we finished the most recently. So I feel pretty confident about your abilities here. Hopefully the other chapters go as well.